Beginning in 1789, the French Revolution started when the Estates General was called to solve the monetary woes of France. The Third Estate formed the National Assembly as a revolutionary representative of the people. As tensions rose and crop failures increased, a revolution was bound to occur. On July 14, 1789, the people stormed the Bastille, a clear indication of a revolution in France. Other notable events include the abolition of feudalism, the Declaration of the Rights of Man, and the Women's March on Versailles, which led to Louis XVI's kidnapping. During all this time, up until 1792, Louis XVI was still considered the king, although he was now titled the King of the French. The Third Estate had formed the National Assembly, but the working classes still took issue with their decisions as well. The Second French Revolution, today on the Western Tradition.
The peasants and urban workers were not satisfied with how the assembly had gone about the redistribution of land, and urban workers were being hit hard by rising food prices. This rapid inflation had come as a result of the instability of the new revolutionary government and the lack of gold to back the now totally paper currency system. Up until this point, the lower classes were in favor of the revolution, but to them, the new revolutionary government was just as bad as the old regime, still made up of the wealthy. In addition, within the assembly, a faction that became known as the Jacobins was rising. The more conservative sub-party, the Girondins, called for a revolutionary war to free Europe from the tyrannical monarchs and nobles. In April 1792, France declared war on Austria. The war started poorly with many early defeats on the northern frontier, and by July of 1792, both Prussia and Austria were poised to invade France. On the 11th of July, the Assembly declared the nation to officially be in danger. Meanwhile, the more radical faction within the Jacobin Club, the Montagnards, were riling up the French people. Notable radicals included Maximilien Robespierre, Georges Danton, and Jean-Paul Marat, and they wanted the king out. The Jacobins began turning the people against the king, whose supporters were using the monarchy as a defense against the lower classes. With this new leadership, the revolution had now officially become one of the people. Throughout the summer, troops from all over France were being shuttled through Paris on their way to the front lines. The introduction of these troops to the city only helped escalate the tensions.
On the 10th of August, sans-culottes, the working class people of the city, invaded Tuileries with support from the provincial troops. The palace was easy to defend. It was garrisoned by regular troops on either side, 950 veteran Swiss mercenaries of the Swiss Guard. These were backed by 930 guards, 2,000 National Guards, and 200 to 300 Cavaliers of St. Louis. Along with other Royalist volunteers, 5,000 men should have been an ample defense, though, by some oversight, they were seriously short of ammunition. Before even a single shot had been fired, the royal family were in retreat across the gardens to the door of the assembly.
As the king left, so did his troops will to defend the castle. The guards left their posts, crying, "Long live the nation," and the National Guard slowly began to side with the insurgents. On the right bank of the river, the battalions of the Saint Antoine, and on the left, those of Saint Marcel, the Bretons, and the Meursaillais, marched forward with little to no resistance. At many places that had been ordered guarded, no resistance was put up at all. In the end, 600 of the Swiss guards and servants were killed, and on the side of the insurgents, only 376 were counted as dead or wounded. The mob captured and imprisoned the royal family, and a revolutionary government was set up in Paris.
By overthrowing the monarchy, the popular movement had effectively issued a challenge to the whole of Europe. Internally, the declaration of war and overthrow of the monarchy permanently radicalized the revolution. Within the Legislative Assembly, that night, half of the members had fled, leaving only 284 seats filled. As soon as the insurrection was definitively victorious, the Assembly announced the suspension of the king. The king was placed under a strong guard. The Assembly remained for the time being, but recognized the commune of radical leaders who had taken charge during the insurrection. The Assembly voted that the convention should be summoned and elected by universal suffrage to decide on the future organization of the state. One of its first acts was to abolish the monarchy. The August insurrection greatly increased sans-culotte influence in Paris, with citizens now gaining admittance to all meetings of the Assembly. For the nobility of Paris, August 10th marked the end of the old regime. The new government silenced the opposition press, closed the toll gates into the city, and seized many of the refractory priests and aristocrats. On the 11th, the Legislative Assembly gave municipalities the power to arrest only suspects. As the volunteers were preparing to leave to the front lines, rumors spread rapidly that their departure was to be the signal for prisoners to stage an uprising. A wave of executions in prisons followed the September of 1792. These were later to become known as the September Massacres, which we will cover next week. Until then, I'm William Kling for the Western Tradition.